Hello friends, my name is Sandhu. I am a CICC licensed immigration consultant based out of Ontario, Canada. Today we'll talk about Nova Scotia occupations and demand stream, which is a really good stream, right? If you're looking for an easy PR pathway. And the reasons are many, and we will discuss all of those. One is that I'm going to talk about why it is a good stream, what are the benefits, what is the eligibility requirements. We'll talk about the process, we'll talk about employer requirements, we'll talk about some of the documents required for this particular stream. So without any further ado, let's dive right into it. So what are the benefits of occupation demand stream? The first thing is there are eligible occupations in tier 3, 4 and 5. How many streams are there actually which give opportunity for tier 4 and tier 5 candidates? And this is one of them, really, really good. Then you have age from 21 to 55 years of age. So people who are even professionals, they can be eligible in this specific stream who are like 10 years, 15 years experience. But as long as they have related experience, they might be eligible for this particular stream. And of course, postgraduate work permit students, international students, this is pretty good for them. No CRS, which means no comprehensive ranking score. So it is not through express entry. So the CRS scores right now are through the roof. So some of the general category draws are coming like upwards of 500 CRS points. Very difficult to get those. So fourth point is that you don't have PNP application fee, unlike many other PNPs like Ontario may have like 1500 for certain streams. There is no application fee. You only need 1 year of related experience, which is also pretty good. Low education requirements. All you need is a high school credential. And low language requirements, CLB4, that's pretty low. CLB4 is a very, very easy to get. So that's called as Canadian language benchmark, right? So very low scores required. Now let's look at the eligibility. So the first and foremost is that you must have a full-time permanent job offer from a Nova Scotia employer in Nova Scotia, right? In either of these streams, right? So first of all, let me explain what is a full-time. So full-time here means minimum of 30 hours per week. So that's considered as full-time. And permanent here means indeterminate job offer. Your job offer cannot say, that we will have this person for 1 year, 2 years. So it means indeterminate. And then the kind of occupations which are listed in this particular stream are nurse aides, you have food and beverage servers, food counter attendants, light duty cleaners, transport truck drivers, heavy equipment operators, construction trade helpers, and laborers. And they need to have 1 year of paid work experience related to the job within the last 5 years and be between age 21 and 55 years of age, and have a high school diploma, have appropriate training skills or accreditation for the job, maybe specifically relevant to, for example, let's say in case of truck drivers, must have the right kind of license for that. Language ability equal to Canadian language benchmark level. For your first language, either English or French, have enough financial resources to successfully settle in Nova Scotia. So for transport truck drivers, they have mentioned something specifically, which is saying for transport truck drivers who include driving outside of province, a job based in Nova Scotia means that the employer has physical premises non-residential in Nova Scotia. So what does non-residential mean is that they cannot be operating, their office cannot be in a home, where at least 3 staff work, trucks park, and transport truck drivers begin and routes there. So that is what is the requirement. So what are the general employment requirements? So most important thing is this one. The employer must have operated in Nova Scotia for the last 2 years at the time your employment started. So what does that mean? So you cannot be working for an employer which is just 1 year in Nova Scotia. So they have been established and operating for at least last 2 years in Nova Scotia. And then there are what kind of employer? Then there is another things we have. If the employer is a commercial business, it must be registered with Nova Scotia Registry of Joint Stock Companies and have a permanent establishment in Nova Scotia as defined in Canada's income tax. And if it is a non-for-profit, it must be registered under the Societies Act. Another very important thing is that they have to have an employer registration certificate from the Director of Labor Standards in order to recruit and hire foreign workers for employment in Nova Scotia if necessary. So those are the requirements, general requirements. There are many more things, and you can always refer to the website. There's an application guide. So they have detailed like 15-20 pages application guides. You can go and look at all the details, which is very important to go through before you apply for this particular stream. Then we could come to the steps to apply. So there are 2 steps, right? First thing is you apply to Nova Scotia, and then the second step is you apply to the federal non-express entry immigration, right? So Nova Scotia, you apply for Nova Scotia nominee program, occupations in demand. So there's no fee for that. And let's say if you're nominated, let's say you're on postgraduate work permit, and maybe subsequently if you're nominated and you need also work permit, your work permit is expiring. In that case, you can even ask for letter of support for your temporary work permit, right? And the second step after you are nominated is that you have to apply to IRCC for your permanent residence visa within 6 months of receiving your nomination certificate. So on the right side is basically a picture of the application page for Nova Scotia PNP. So it's mentioned that the processing time is 3 months or more to review the complete application. So make sure that you know that, and that's how much it most likely going to take for them to go through your application and make a decision on that. So let's look at the English or French requirements. As I was mentioning, the CLB requirements were 4. So that translates to IELTS score of 4.5, 3.5, 4, and 4, right? So 4.5 in listening, reading is 3.5, writing is 4, and speaking is 4. That's pretty low, and obviously the test has to be within the last 2 years. You cannot apply if the test results before you apply exceeds 2 years, right? So that is important consideration to have. Then you have the documents related to your move to Nova Scotia settlement funds. So you may provide one or both of the following. So bank statements from the last 3 months showing all account balances and transaction history. Statement from your investment portfolio showing fixed deposit and the terms of withdrawing funds from the investment before the investment matures. So these basically, it has to be transferable funds. It shouldn't be something that which you cannot move, right? And your name or your spouse's name. So, and they've also mentioned that do not include real estate or personal items such as jewelry, furniture, vehicles. So don't say that, I have a jewelry worth $20,000, so that should meet the requirements. No, that wouldn't, right? Then related to the funds, what they want is demonstrate that you have enough income to pay for these things. So you have immigration costs, you have travel expenses, costs related to settling in Nova Scotia, such as having enough money for food, rent, and clothing. And another thing is that they have mentioned, just note down, the settlement funds has to be as per IRCC. So the last one, which was updated on April 25th, 2023. So your bank account should show $13,757 if you're one person. And if there are more, so accordingly, you have to look at those, requirements. But they have mentioned one very important thing, which is that these requirements may be reduced if you're living in Nova Scotia. Either you have to be living in Nova Scotia or you have an arranged employment. Arranged employment could be like an LMIA based job offer. In all these cases, you must provide proof of your financial sources on your own name. The deduction will be assessed by an officer on a case to case basis. So that's something which is important to understand. Another very important thing is, which is mentioned in their application, is the guide is that they will not approve your application if it is clear that your family income will be below Canada's low income cutoff, right? So your family income includes these things: the income you earn from your job offer and your spouse income if they have a permanent job offer in Nova Scotia, right? So it should not be less than that, right? And you can always go to federal income table and find out what is the requirement, and your job offer should be more than that. Otherwise, they will not approve that. Okay. Now let's look at the documents related to work experience and job offer. Maybe let me focus first on documents related to job offer. So you need to have your employer filling up the NSNP 200 form, which is basically your employer must complete and sign this form. It proves that you have been offered a permanent full-time job, and you have to provide supporting documents in your application. So this is a must. Plus, since you need to show 1 year of work experience, so they have specifically mentioned that this is how the reference letter and what the reference letter should entail, right? It should be on a company letterhead, and it should have official seal if that's applicable. It should include all of the following. One is the company's full address, telephone, fax numbers. I don't think so many will have fax numbers, but email, website, whatever must be on their letterhead. That's pretty much what it talks about. So supervisor signature of that of responsible. So whoever is the authorized signatory should have been signed, dated. It should talk about the specific period of time you worked. So on what date to what date you worked, what was your job title, the amount of time you worked in each job, your main duties, which is very important because the the work experience has to be related work experience. So unless you show the main duties, it will not work for you. Okay. And your annual salary plus benefits for each job, the number of hours you work per week. Because why you need number of hours per week? Because in Canada, for immigration purposes, if the number of hours is 30 or more, that is considered as full time, right? If you have 30 hours per week and you have worked for 52 weeks, so that will be considered as full time experience of 1 year, right? And number of hours you have worked in each job. So those are the important considerations you should have related to this. And then finally, we will talk about documents about you and your family. So obviously your passport. One very important thing about passport is that the expiry date of all passports should be at least 2 years from the date of your application. So you can always look into this. That's very, very important. Plus, you need to have documents related to your spouse and children if they are immigrating with you. This includes a copy of your marriage certificate, copies of your birth certificate for dependent children, copies of custody document permission for child to come to Canada, copies of adoption papers if that's applicable to you, right? So if you need my help, my contact information is +1 437 848 7200, and you can book an appointment. There's a small snapshot of my website where you can have book my appointment or consultation. I mean, this is a can be a complicated application. If you need my help, please reach out. The email is info@dilimmigration. My website is www.dilimmigration.com. And my YouTube handle is at Real Dil Sandhu, where I have created many more videos related to many immigration pathways, which you might find interesting or relevant. So if you did like this video, and if you found something valuable, please do like and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so that whenever I post a new video, you will get the intimation. So thank you so much for watching this video, and your support means a lot to me, and have a wonderful day.